Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for this webinar. This one's about our new risk assessment module, which we launched earlier this month, and how it helps large organizations to standardize their approach to risk management across multiple sites and locations. My name's Alex Nichol. I'm head of product at Notify. I've been with the business for just over a year now. I've been designing software for 20 odd years, and the last 10 years of that have been spent building mostly health and safety software for high-risk industries, so construction and rail infrastructure mostly. And I'm joined on the call today by Paul Duff, our customer success and support manager, who's going to be giving you a short demonstration of some of the key parts of the solution.
Thank you very much, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see some familiar faces here. And see we've got some customers on here and then some people who haven't heard of Notify before. So it's great to see some new and some old faces. Just going to wait for a few more people to join and then we'll get the slides up for you. We'll be able to go through. So we'll just give it another minute or so and then we'll dive in. I think that's the last few there, Alex. I'll leave the lobby open so if anyone else joins, then we've always got the recording as well, just for after.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. We'll get kicked off. So by way of an agenda, we'll start out by giving a little bit of background. So I won't bore you to death with the whole Notify backstory and credentials, but I'll give you a quick summary of who we are, what we do, why we do it, just for those who aren't familiar with Notify. I'll give you a quick overview of how we went about designing our risk assessment solution, and then some of the key challenges that we found during our research. And then Paul is going to give you a short demonstration of the module, and then we'll try to answer any questions that you have at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them into the Q&A box or into the chat window, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the webinar. So for those of you who haven't come across us before, Notify is an end-to-end EHS management solution. It's trusted by some of the biggest employers in the UK, and our platform gives business leaders real-time visibility over their health and safety performance. And as a business and as individuals, we take that very seriously. Everything that we take for granted in life, the buildings we occupy, the transport that we take, the electricity that comes out of the wall, the water that comes out of the tap. Millions of people work hard every day to make all of that stuff possible. And every single day, one of those people is killed in the process. 500 more are seriously hurt. And we want to do what we can to change that. We want to help people to work more safely and ultimately to go home safe. And to help us do that, we've created some incredibly sophisticated software. We already have class-leading incident management and audits and inspections modules. And our customers were very clear that they wanted an integrated risk assessment solution to match. So to make the three pillars of proactive safety management. So that's what we did. And we designed it very much in partnership with our customers. So my team, the product team at Notify, we speak to customers every day. We call the process continuous product discovery. And as part of that, we speak to customers about how they're using our products, what they're using them for, where they seem to work well and where they fall short. We don't want to cultivate an idealistic vision of how people should use our software. We want to hear real stories from real people using our software in the real world. And we take all of the learnings from that and all of the challenges that we uncover, and then we design solutions that ultimately make people's lives easier. And solutions that take the everyday realities of work life into account. So we spoke to dozens of users across our customer base. So everybody from safety directors, regional managers to local SHEC reps, depot supervisors. And we wanted to understand how they orchestrate and manage risk assessments currently, especially across organizations with lots of sites and locations and hundreds, and in some cases, thousands of employees and contractors. And we wanted to know what their biggest challenges were, how they were tackling those challenges today, and how ideally they would want to tackle them in the future. And there was a handful of key themes that came up time and time again. So the first was flexibility. Everybody wanted total control over how they could structure their risk assessments and their templates. And this would differ from template to template. Not all risk assessments are the same across an organization. Everybody wanted to be able to create different types of risk assessments. So the sort of standard general risk assessment, IOSH and EBOSH style with hazards and controls tables and risk scores, but also simple rapid fire checklist style point of work, risk assessments, fire assessments, cost assessments, you name it. They also wanted to be visually led. So we see a lot of our customers have lots of workers whose first language is not English. So they want to be able to convey information quickly and clearly using visuals. So icons that represent hazards, mandatory controls, PPE, that sort of thing, using iconography that is instantly recognizable, regardless of the reader's first language. Easy access was another one. So everybody wanted their frontline colleagues to be able to conduct point of work risk assessments really quickly out on site by scanning a QR code or clicking a link or something like that on a mobile device and quickly filling in a checklist. And the quicker that could happen, the better. Confidentiality as well. So they wanted to be able to protect certain risk assessments that might contain sensitive information about individuals. And read and sign, they wanted frontline staff to be able to quickly open and read the latest version of any general risk assessment really quickly and easily, ideally by scanning a QR code or clicking a link again in a text message or something like that. And they wanted those same frontline staff to be able to sign it right there with their fingertip to say that they've read and understood it, all captured in an audit trail. And more importantly, they wanted to be able to do that without needing everybody to have a Notify license. Better still, they wanted to be able to find out quite quickly which risk assessments any individual had read and signed and when, just by searching for that individual's name, is a really critical factor in defending claims. And then the last one was document control. So they wanted to make sure that certain risk assessments could not be published to the workforce until they'd been approved by a competent professional. So these were the main areas of focus. These were the main bits, the main areas that we focused on when we designed our new risk assessment module. So this is a good time for a short demonstration. So everything that Paul is about to show you now, It's really a snapshot under the hood, so just the highlights really. But these were the biggest priorities that almost everybody we spoke to had. So Paul, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Yeah, so what I'll do now, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll dive straight into a bit of a product demonstration. So I'll just give that a second or two just to come through to everyone. And what I've gone ahead and done is logged into the Notify portal. So I'm logged into our management portal here. For those of you who are familiar with the Notify platform, you've got your navigation bar on the left-hand side. And I'm going to start in a new part of the product, which is Template Manager and Risk Templates. So we've completely overhauled how we go about building our templates now as part of this new update. And it's more aligned now to our form templates and our method statements templates. Just going to hide that menu by clicking that at the top. So what I can now do is create a new template, and it follows real suit similar to our form templates, where we can look to use drag and drop technology to really customize and show how you want this to look. So I'm going to start building this template. I'm going to call this a manual handling risk template. I can give it a description, I can look to categorize it, and even tag it against a standard on clause if I want. I've got the ability to make this confidential as well, one of the things that we were talking about earlier. So if you need to do a risk assessment for someone potentially with a disability or anything like that from a template level, you can look to set that up so things can be automatically flagged, especially if you're doing one for a vulnerable person per se. In this particular example, I'm going to toggle off the confidentiality at this stage. Scrolling down, you can see we've got some basic configuration we can do here by making amendments to the footer. And we've also got the ability to include a risk matrix, including your initial risk score. So you can have both your initial and then your residual risk score. On the Notify platform, you can change your risk matrix from 3x3 to 4x4 and 5x5. And for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to keep the standard 5x5. We've got the ability to enable signatures as well, which will become quite important as we move through this. Because not only can we enable signatures, so the person completing the risk assessment signs it off, we can also have it go through an approval process as well. As Alex mentioned, real key for when we're sending this to people, and if anyone is making any amendments, that it's going through the appropriate approval process. At this stage, though, as I mentioned, this is all just being done at the template level. So I'm doing this as the system administrator, or someone with the administrator access. And I'm then going down into some of the general details. So I'm going to call this risk assessment manual handling, and I'm going to provide a description. This is to be undertaken at each site, adding in any local hazards. And we can look to make some of this content locked or editable, so we can really restrict what people can and can't change within this risk assessment. On the left-hand side here, you can see I've got access to adding in different sections in different form fields. I'm going to start here by clicking on icons, and that is going to give me full access to the icon library, aligning to ISO 7010. We've got over 300 types of icons in the Notify platform now that you can look to use. So I'm just going to put this one as warnings. I can then go and look at the icons. This is required, and I can search by category on icons, and I can select anything which is going to be appropriate. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll put crushing of hands, this one, a forklift truck, and a general warning symbol. So I'm going to put these. And I'm going to select these three as the default ones. So by default, these are going to be the three hazards, warning symbols that do pop up when someone goes to complete this risk assessment. Next, I'm going to look to do PPE. So again, I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to do PPE. I'm going to make this one required as well. And I can search, and I'm going to search for, let's see, so we're going to go for eye protection. High visibility clothing, and protective gloves. What we can also look to do is make changes to what we call this. So if you work in an industry where potentially the railway, where you need orange high visibility clothing, you can look to make changes to this, or if there's a certain standard or anything that you want to add on here, you can look to rename these. So far, I've added my warning symbols and also my PPE. I'm now going to click preview at the bottom here, just so I can start to see what this actually looks like as I'm going through. So we can say we've got the title, we've got the description, and we've got some of the warning symbols and PPE. I'm going to save this as I'm going through by clicking the save button at the bottom here, and I can start making some further amendments. So I'm now going to add a new section. So what we can now do is look to do a point of work risk assessment as well. So using the form fields on the left-hand side, we can bring in questions such as yes or no, linear scales. So are access routes clear? And we can have questions such as yes or no, not applicable. In this case, I'm going to hide the not applicable option. So we could really have a full point of work risk assessment done here without even needing to get into your hazards and controls table, or without even having to document a safe system of work. So there's real full flexibility for customers. It's industry agnostic, so any industry can really pick this up and tailor it, similar to our other modules. It can be tailored in any way that you require it, really, to help you capture the data, which is really important to your organization. So on that though, I'm now going to jump into the hazards and controls table. So I'm going to click that section there. And I'm going to go ahead and create my first hazard. So the first hazard for manual handling, I'm going to say lifting of heavy items. I'm going to say this one's locked, so people can't make any changes on the ground to this one. I'm going to say it's employees who might be harmed. How might they be harmed? I think we've got strains in here, sprains and strains. And I'm going to say the initial score of this one is 12, and then I put in some controls. So load to be assessed prior to lifting. Could be my first control. My next control is going to be team lifting where available. And I'm going to save them. And then based on this, I'm going to say that this risk would now be a 6. So what I'm going to do is then save and create another. It's going to take me into this screen, and I'm going to put poor lifting technique. Who might be harmed? Again, I'm going to say employees. And again, I'm going to say sprains and strains. I'm going to keep this one as a 12. And adding in some control measures on here. Training provided before undertaking the activity. I'm going to reduce that one and keep that as a 6 as well. So I've saved them so far, and I've now came out of that. Oh, hang on, I didn't give it a remaining risk. Let me do that again. And you can see here, if you're doing this out of manual question like I just have there, it will pop up and it will let you know the part that you have missed. So I've now saved these hazards in controls here. So again, I can preview, see exactly what this template is going to look like. So we've got the original information, the PPE, point of work risk assessment, and my hazards and controls table, including what it would look like, who it's been completed by at the bottom. Again, this table as well, what you're seeing here, all these wordings can be changed to make it appropriate to your industry, because we appreciate some organisations will need to undertake high risk activity, so you will still undertake it in the appropriate conditions. So I'm now happy with this template. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to publish this template out. And this now means that people in my organisation with the right level of access will be able to go in to a library really and look at the templates available to them and take a risk assessment straight off the shelf, which is already baked up, and then they can look to make any appropriate changes. So I'm now going to go into that part of the platform and show you what that looks like. So just going back to my navigation bar on the left-hand side, I'm going to go to risk assessments. In this particular example, I sit at the top of the organisation, so I can see every risk assessment available. And you can see we've got over 633 in the Notify platform here in our demo site. You've got the ability at the top there to filter, looking by certain sites, location, statuses, and even who has signed the risk assessment. But more on that in a little bit as we come onto it. On the right-hand side, I can then click New Risk Assessment, and it'll show me the risk assessments that I have access to. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and conduct a manual handling risk assessment template. I'm going to put in the date I've completed it. I can set a review date. I'm going to say it needs to be reviewed in 3 months, I'm going to say. I can set the site location I'm at. So I'm going to be in the North Division for this one. And you can see there I've got the ability to set the confidential flag. So if I do need to make this a need-to-know risk assessment, if you've got a generic occupational health style risk assessment that you use and then want to flag them, you could look to do that at this part. We can then see the warning symbols that have already been preset on this one. And I can look to make any changes because this part wasn't actually locked down. And you can see that by the little edit sign at the top here in the pen. You can change or remove parts of this content. We then go down to the PPE and I can select which PPE I require for this activity. So I'm going to say high-vis clothing and protective gloves. I'm not going to say I need eye protection in this particular case. I'm now going down, are the access routes clear? Yes. And I'm going down and I'm now looking at the hazards and controls table. So we can see the top hazard what I've put in here, lifting of heavy items. This one's been locked, so I can't make any further changes to this. What I can do on the one below though is poor lift technique. So I could look to make some changes to this one because it hasn't been locked. So I could look to add in some further controls. So in this case, I'm going to click into it. And I'm going to add a further control. And I'm going to say operatives will be supervised when conducting this activity. I'm going to say with supervision, and then I can save that one. So we can now see I've now made that change on there. And then going down, when I'm then happy with the risk assessment, what I can look to do, I can click to sign, and I can then look to publish that out. So because I made some changes to this, and we've got the approval process switched on, an email is now going to go, in this case to myself, because I've set myself up as the approver for this, but an email is going to go to my line manager to let them know that a risk assessment requires their approval. They'll then be told how long they have to look to conduct and review this risk assessment. In this case, I set it up for 1 day. So they'll get an email letting them know. So this is now switched into a different status at the bottom. So you can look to see, as a manager, I can look to assign this risk assessment to someone else if I need to bring in someone else and ask for their support with this. I can look to approve the risk assessment, or I can look to reject the risk assessment by suggesting changes and sending these comments back to the person who has conducted the risk assessment. So if I don't agree with the controls or PPE or the warning symbols or anything they've put on, I'm going to look to reject it and send it back to them as feedback. In this example though, I'm going to say I'm happy with it, so I'm going to look to approve it. So I've gone ahead and now approved this risk assessment. So this risk assessment 634 manual handling for the North Division has now been published. What I can now do, I can click back into this and I can see all the information that was done for this. What you may have been able to see at the very bottom here, as the read and sign share settings are currently set to off. So far, I actually haven't made this so it's available to everyone within my organization. What I'm going ahead to do, I'm going to go and review this risk assessment. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to make it so anyone within my organization who scans this QR code can go ahead and view this risk assessment. So this can be done on mobile, can be done on the web. So it's fully responsive if you wanted to put these QR codes around site, or if you wanted to put these QR codes in email signatures or anything like that, people would easily be able to access them. Same with the link too. So what does it look like? So I'm going to open up Notify again in incognito. So I'm not going to be logged in. And I'm going to go ahead and follow the link. So anyone within your organization can go ahead and follow that link. In this case, because I haven't published it yet, it's going to say it's currently under review and I need to speak to my local Notify system admin. So bear with me while I approve this. And I now refresh it. So you'll now be able to see the full risk assessment. And the beauty of this is that anyone who follows this magic link can see that. So they won't need to go ahead and have an access to your platform. They don't need any login or anything. They can purely just follow this link. I'm going through and I'm reviewing all the information. But better yet, what we can also look to do is allow them to sign the risk assessment too at this stage. So I'm going to enable that. And I'm going to toggle on anyone with a link can sign. Same again, because I'm making some changes, I just need to go through a little approval process. What you will also be seeing here at the very bottom, I'll just go back into there, is any changes that I do make are all fully audit trailed. So a really robust process. And based on customer feedback, we're actually going to take this one step further. So in the next release that you'll see, we'll actually be able to show you exactly what has changed line by line. So if someone has took out a certain bit of PP, that will show up on here. If someone has changed the answer to a question, that will show up on here. So should the worst happen and you ever need to defend yourself against the claim, it will be fully defensible because you have the full audit trail inside a Notify, going one step even further to what we've got already. So going back on to this magic link and following the risk assessment, what you'll now see on the bottom bar is that I can click and sign. I can put in my name, I've got myself John Smith here, I can put in my employee number, I can put in my email address, and then I can look to sign, confirmed, read and sign. So I've now received this risk assessment, maybe by email, maybe scanned the QR code, I've reviewed it, I'm happy with the content of it, I've now signed it off to say I understand and I agree. Closing that tab down now, navigating back to the Notify platform and this risk assessment. As the manager, I can see the risk assessment, and scrolling down, I can also see the read confirmation log at the bottom here. So clicking on this, I can see who signed it and when they signed it. At the bottom, I can export and I can see the full export log, including signatures and a full date and timestamp of when they did actually do that. What we've also got here is if someone does already have a login in the Notify system, it's got to pre-populate their information too. So to make it even simpler and remove that step away too. I hope what you can see here is that we're trying to make things as easy as possible to engage your frontline workers when it comes to risk assessments. So people don't need to walk around going different filing cabinets. We're trying to put things at the click of their fingers and trying to remove as many steps as possible. And that's a common theme across all of our modules here at Notify. I'm now going to navigate back one page and I'm going to go back to the main area for my risk assessments. I mentioned that you can look to search by a signatory too. So if I click on this drop down, if I search for John Smith, I can see anytime John Smith has signed a risk assessment. So straight away I've got a library and I can see John Smith has signed 5 of these risk assessments. So I can see straight away which ones he signed and which ones he hasn't signed. So we've also got that record to make sure that people are signing risk assessments when they're meant to. And the final part I just want to show you on this is the Notify platform looking to export this to PDF. So again, listening to customer feedback, we've had some various feedback of how PDFs can look and how the platform should look when you export it. Every organization shows their risk assessment in different ways. So we've tried to capture that as much as we can. So there's the ability to upload cover sheets. So you can have a cover sheet in front of your Notify platform. What you can also look to do is export and use the template that we've got on here. So I'm just going to let that load up. So it's got your logo on the top. It's got the risk assessment. You can see who completed it, who it was signed by. We've got the warning icons on here. And we can change pagination. So at the moment, I've got this setting on different pages, but you can look to merge them together, depending on in your settings. You may want things on different pages. You may want to condense it. You can look to do that as part of your form template building. And then we're seeing your hazards and controls table. It may be that you only want the hazards and controls table. So what you can look to do is export this particular page on its own, or you may just want the safe system of work. So you can look to export the safe system of work too. So what we've done here is try to capture as many requirements as we can for our customers across multi-industries. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to take a quick sip of my coffee and hand it back to Alex to see if there's any questions.
Cool. Cheers for that, Paul. Great. So yeah. So obviously, there's a lot more to this system that we've shown you today. But these were the highlights and the things that were important to the customers that we spoke to. So now the risk assessment module gives our customers basically total flexibility over the structure and the ordering of their risk assessment, the ability to create the different types of risk assessments, so checklists, hazard controls tables, more options for displaying hazards and PPE and control information visually with ISO 7010 icons. Quick and easy point of work risk assessments as well, using QR codes that can actually launch the risk assessment. Confidential risk assessments, super easy now to read and sign for frontline colleagues. They can do it on their mobile device and sign with their fingertip without having a Notify license. The ability to share any published risk assessment via QR code. The ability to find out which ones have been signed by a colleague by searching for their name, and of course the approval process, so the ability to prevent a risk assessment from being published without a proper approval. So this is all designed to make it the orchestration and governance of standardized risk assessments so much easier, especially for small safety teams who are trying to manage safety across very large distributed workforces. So we've got a few questions to ask, Paul, if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's see.
Some of the questions that we had we've already answered during the demo, I think. But so one question was quite interesting. How do we move from risk assessments being a compliance exercise to something that genuinely reduces risk?
Good question. Good question. I guess one of the things is probably starting by having good templates. So looking and using our form builder where you can pre-populate relevant information and materials there, so people have a basis to start on, really. Ensuring that you've got a high quality risk assessment basis to start on before you're pushing out, especially if you've got multiple sites, multiple projects or operations. But regardless of how good that is, you need employee engagement. That is a key thing. So employee engagement, trying to get employees engaged at various levels, from director board all the way down to really junior and apprentice level. That is obviously a massive thing. Health and safety professionals are always tackling behavioural safety and getting people engaged. But one of the ways that you can make safety, I guess, more engageable, I would say, is by making it simple. So by allowing people to scan QR codes, really getting in there, nice and simple, following links, just getting the information at the click of their fingertips really does help. And part of all that as well, that compliance exercise, making sure it actually does reduce risk, is making sure that people aren't just pushing forward any type of risk assessment without a review process. So you've got that approval process we've now built in where it can go to the person's line manager or a particular site. So you can actually configure if you want that to go to the health and safety team or the person's line manager. So if you are empowering your frontline, let's say branch managers, for example, but you still want to give them some support because maybe they haven't went through the full IOSH or NEBOSH training, you can still look to have that central governance to then provide advice, especially through that accept and suggest changes process. I think I've covered that one.
Yeah, I think so. Brilliant. The other question I've got here is a bit more practical. It's about the approval process. Does the system facilitate reminders so that people don't miss those deadlines? I suppose they're worried about bottlenecks where things are waiting for approval before they can go out.
Yeah, so we've got a few different parts of approvals and reminders in the Notify platform. I guess from the approval perspective, that reminder is, so you can set the time scale. I think I briefly covered it during, but yeah, you can set how many days people have had, whether that's 1 day or 7 days for it to get, so that they can be emailed saying you've got something that's waiting your approval, and then they're reminded based on a period. And when it comes to the risk assessment as well, so when it has gone out and it is coming up to the review, people get an email 3 months before, and then 1 month before, and then I believe it's a week before as well. So we are also letting people know when the risk assessment needs reviewed as well. So it's not just a one-time exercise, that going forward, it can also be as well.
Cool. Let's see what else we've got. Does the module allow bulk amendment to risk assessments, e.g. change to PPE standard which needs to be included in multiple existing risk assessments?
I think you would look to do that by doing it from a template level. So depending on that, if you changed a template and everything was hanging off the back of that template, further versions of that risk assessment would then be aligned to that. And when they update it, so when it comes down for the review and the next approval, it will automatically align to that. So depending on how you're looking to use the functionality, yes, it could.
Cool. And then the last question, if we already have the risk assessment function, will our current templates transfer automatically into the new update, or do we have to create new ones?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Dave. Obviously aware that you're obviously a Notify customer and use Notify. We can catch up with yourself. I'll get your customer success manager to kind of touch base about how that migration looks. We've got some tools behind the scenes to bring them across. We didn't just turn them on for customers because we wanted to face customers across to this, but yeah, we can get in touch and we can talk about how we can look to migrate that across for you as part of a phased approach for you. I think we've got another question popped in somewhere.
We do, yeah, in the chat. I've just spotted that. Can further icons be uploaded?
Great question. I know we did speak about a wildcard type of one, Alex.
They
I
are
don't know if
actually
that
in
is
there.
in this release at the moment. Oh, they are in there, are they?
Yeah, the icon picker includes all of the icons from the ISO 7010 standard. So it's pretty much everything that you would need. And most of the categories include a wildcard icon with the exclamation mark. So if you need an icon, or you need to put in something peculiar to your business that doesn't exist elsewhere, you can put that in with the exclamation mark wildcard, which is the industry standard, and then just label it up however you want. And you can have multiples as well. So if you've got lots of those, you can put as many as you want in.
Yeah, I noticed that you can have multiple of the same icons, but no, that's good from that generic ones, I suppose. Yeah, I've just seen that when I've done a little search there, the general ones and the wildcard ones. So no, really excited to start using them as well.
Smashing. I think that's everything. So guess just put our contact details up. So if there's anybody on the call who's looking to implement a digital risk assessment solution, and would like a bit of a more in-depth demo, then please feel free to get in touch, and somebody will be able to take you through that. Likewise, if you do have any other questions pop into your mind after the call about anything that you've seen today, just drop us a line, give us a call on the details on the screen. Yeah, Paul and his team will be happy to help. So I hope this has been useful, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you all for your time. Take care now and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.